India's bid for UNSC veto power got a massive boost with this US statement. There is no denying India's rightful place in the United Nations Security Council. Within days, other permanent UNSC members, France, the United Kingdom and Russia have also voiced support for India's inclusion as a veto-wielding member. Even tiny Bhutan has backed neighbor India. Thimphu too has been a victim of Chinese salami slicing and border aggression. This is a slap on the face of motivated anti-India agenda and represents India's growing stature as a 21st century superpower. India's growing footprint in global diplomacy has become much more prominent after Prime Minister Modi's trip to the United States for the United Nations Summit of the Future as well as the Quad Leaders Summit. After the United States endorsed India's bid, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer was next. He added his voice to growing chorus for India's UNSC inclusion. At the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly on the 26th of September, Starmer stated, quote, "We want to see permanent African representation on the Council, Brazil, India, Japan and Germany as permanent members, and more seats for elected members as well," unquote. Additionally, he pressed on the significance of evolution of the UNSC to carry out fairer representation which does not get paralyzed by politics. Is he hinting at China? Starmer's remarks come amid a growing wave of endorsements for India, including that of France. French President Emmanuel Macron also voiced Paris's support for India's inclusion as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. At the UNGA, Macron declared, quote, "France, and I will say it again here, supports the expansion of the Security Council. Germany, Japan, India and Brazil should be permanent members along with 2 countries designated by Africa to represent it," unquote. Pointing towards the inefficiency of the UNSC, which gets blocked reciprocally due to vested interests of member nations, again hint China, Macron reiterated the significance of expanding the bloc to represent the current global realities and function effectively. The vocal support by leaders of the UK and France for India publicly comes a few days after Prime Minister Modi delivered a historic speech at the Summit of the Future, where he said that reforms in institutions are essential to stay relevant and to bring about global peace and development. Next, it was the turn of Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also supported India's UNSC aspirations. Speaking on the eve of the UNGA, he reiterated Moscow's continued backing for historic ally India, saying, quote, "Developing countries are underrepresented in the Security Council. So, as we have always been saying, we support India and Brazil's interests and legitimate aspirations to be included in the Security Council," unquote. However, Moscow bluntly asserted that UNSC does not need any additional members from Western groups like the NATO and the EU, hinting at Japan and Germany. Speaking at the Summit of the Future, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres himself also warned the 15-nation UNSC, which he labeled as outdated and whose authority is eroding. He said that unless its composition and working methods are reformed, the United Nations Security Council will lose all its credibility. During Prime Minister Modi's visit to outgoing US President Biden's hometown in Delaware, Biden praised Modi's historic visit to Ukraine and his commitment towards strengthening the Quad. Biden also told Modi personally that the United States backs India's bid to obtain a permanent UNSC seat. A statement by the White House said, quote, "President Biden shared with Prime Minister Modi that the US supports initiatives to reform global institutions to reflect India's important voice, including permanent membership for India in a reformed UN Security Council," unquote. However, there remains an elephant, no, a panda in the room. One giant roadblock in the shape of China, the only Asian nation in the UNSC which clearly does not want to share the power, prestige and responsibility that comes with it. However, sooner or later, China will have to concede as India will get its rightful place at the UN high table. The big question remains, how long will India still have to wait for a UNSC seat? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.